Need any more funds for the balance of this year? Or is your budget on target?
We are hairline, looking at from now to the end of the year projection, we are right there. Should there be any new programs that are going to have to come up or anything new, there would have to be funding for anything new or unanticipated. We are right on target for spending pretty much every penny in our budget.
I would suggest that you get in touch with the business office, because we had a finance committee meeting, and based on the encumbrances and the expenses paid year to date, it looks like you have a surplus of about $2.8 million.
A surplus, you said?
Based on, I'm looking at the whole transportation budget. It looks like we have budgeted this year almost $19 million, and based on the encumbrances and expenses, you're only expected to spend 16.3, if I remember.
Well, I will get together with the business office, because
something's missing.
based on what we saw in Systems 3000, and we've actually had to move, transfer funds out of certain areas of our budget into other areas in order to accomplish what I just talked about, encumbering the funds. So I will certainly do
There's
that.
some information missing there, because we're trying to make the budget for next year, and this information is key.
Yeah, it is key, because I have to tell you, you caught me on, by surprise.
We had a meeting yesterday, I meant to tell you we were supposed to, yeah.
Because can you please make it a point next week to sit down with Arlene and with Ms. Winters and iron this out before
Well, yeah,
the next meeting?
I can tell you I'm pleasantly surprised, because I've been sweating out every penny to make sure that we had enough to get to the end of the year, and
Let me ask you, do you have any idea, a dollar amount of what you need? In other words, what do you think your budget is?
my total budget,
Yeah.
just under 20 million, about 19 million.
Oh, okay, well, so then it's not good news, because then that just means that they're missing some POs, that's it.
All right, I will sit down with the
That is
business
the
office.
budget, in other words, it's not that we budgeted about 18,927 or something like that. But that's it, but the PO is only equal to somewhere in 16, so there's obviously some missing.
All right, we'll definitely go over that, but I know that we are being very, very careful on how we're spending the funds.
Our next meeting is going to be on December 20th. Can you please have this ironed out so we know by the 20th what the numbers are really are, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, but while you're there, I know at the last meeting, we spoke about coming up with a policy as far as school closing goes.
Yes.
Were there any movement?
Yeah, we had a transportation committee meeting and a policy meeting. Well, actually, it was a policy meeting, joint meeting. And during the course of that meeting, there was a lot of discussion, good discussion, passionate discussion about the direction that the board would take during inclement weather and during closure. And I think all of us left the table with the thought that at this time we don't have to have formal board policy change, as I think there's a clearer understanding of everybody's role and everybody's decision process. So I feel confident that the mechanism is in place for us to make the right decision.
Well, I know from experience that, if it's not written down, sometimes people don't know their places and know exactly what they're supposed to do. I think it would be better, that's what I'm thinking, it would be better if we have something written down. So the board can look at it, the board can approve it, and that will be the new policy.
Okay, well, I will then toss it back to
Before we do that, I'm sorry to interrupt you. We really, we have committees that regularly meet now. So the policy committee and the transportation committee really need to sit, iron this out, bring it to the board, and so forth. But I don't want to sit here and discuss, committee's agenda or whatever. But I think between the transportation and the policy committees, they should sit, iron this out, and then bring it to the membership of the whole board, and we'll speak about it in closed session first.
Okay, so
That's exactly what I just said.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, we need to have something written down so we can see exactly what the...
Well, I'm not sure we need something written down. I think before you write anything down, things have to be ironed out.
Can I
Yes,
just,
exactly.
let me just explain. There is a policy in place. The policy clearly says that the superintendent makes the decision. The only difference between what we have in place and what Gus was proposing, whether is if the superintendent should make two decisions, which 99% of the time will be the same decision, because I don't think any superintendent would make a different decision for different people, or whether it would be just one decision. So it's really just a question of when the decision is made, should Gus say, is this for everyone or is this only for one? So it's really insignificant, the difference between the proposed and what we have currently. And so once we clarified that, it seems like the issue a couple weeks ago was that Laura was unaware that Gus was taking it to mean only for public and not for all. And Gus understood that she only meant it for public, and that's where the misunderstanding took place. That was cleared up, and so going forward, that won't happen again.
What I also think what brings up was too is that what we heard last meeting, if my memory is correct, that the police chief was the one dictating to us that the rules were safe and the rules were clear.
No, that was clarified that we do consult with the police to see if it's safe, but that's not the decision. The decision rests with the superintendent. What happened was, Gus had spoken with the superintendent, she said there's no school tomorrow, but she didn't say there's no transportation. So he assumed that means only school, but there is transportation, because he said the roads are safe, so he went ahead and made transportation. Laura said the first she knew that we had transportation, which read about in the press. So had she have known that he was taking that to mean that there would be transportation, she would have clarified that she meant no transportation.
Okay, but what I'm saying is to avoid any confusion next time a storm comes, and trust me, it's when the storm is going to be coming, is that there's no confusion about
Superintendent's call.
Superintendent's call, we all know, yeah, it's always been like that.
Okay, but that wasn't the case.
It was clarified. It was the case.
It was the case.
No, it wasn't the case during the storm.
It was.
No.
The superintendent spoke to the police chief and then she made the decision.
But there was school for private and not for public.
Because
That was the confusion.
when she told Gus her decision, he misunderstood and thought that she only meant for school, not for transportation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Gus.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
All right.
Motion for the business administrator agenda, items A through W.
Oh, is it discussion on this yet, or voting?
We need to vote first.
No, once.
I need a motion and a second and then discussion. Yeah.
All right, motion by Joe.
Second. Grace?
Yeah, I have one quick question. Well, several, but I'm not gonna put everybody else. I'll do them later. Page 29, on
Wait, we're on next to 7.
Oh, no, page 29 on the bills list. Page 29, read right. I guess it's one of our private vendors. In October, they submitted a bill for $4,070. And in November, they submitted a bill for $9,018. Is there some type of, well, my question is the reason why the jump from 4,000 to 9,000? Was it double the students?
Rewrite.
Page 29.
Non-public.
Page 29.
Why did their
They'll double.
Why did they go double? No, I'm saying, was there a different number of students that attended one month and next month is different?
It goes by hour, it has to do with how many hours they did.
Is it?
That's a tough kind of question to ask in the middle of a public
I understand,
meeting.
we wouldn't have time to go through the back, so.
Well, or even in private. It's a question that needs to be asked at a point when the business office has the backup available.
They're probably treating more students.
Usually in the beginning of the year, it'll be slower, and then as the year
Slower.
goes on, it'll get more and more.
Students are identified that they need services.
I don't know who this is, but,
One of the sheriff, one
Yeah.
of the therapy.
Why don't you get us an answer over the next day or so, please?
you can get it up, you get it Tracy. Oh, that's what it is, yeah, she gets paid per hour, it has to do with how many kids she serves. It's a reading therapist. So in the beginning of the year, until kids are identified, it's gonna be slow, and then as kids are, as more and more kids are identified, she has to ramp up and ramp it out, and she's not.
This makes sense.
Huh?
That makes sense, that does.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know who it was.
Thank you. Yes.
Roll call. Schwartz.
Schwartz?
I'm sorry, one question. Now, the students will be identified based on their IEPs, correct?
They should be providing a list to the, special services department to approve the bills. Mr. Schwartz?
I just have a question.
His birthday thing. This, I just, no, W, that's for the attorney.
What page is that on?
Page 7. What's the settlement? Was this ever discussed?
It's a special ed matter.
Special matter? Okay. Yes.
Mr. Silver?
No, A to H is no.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
A to H will be a no.
Mr. Tiff?
Are we also voting on the addendum as well?
No, just the business
Okay.
administrator
Yes.
side.
Yes.
Who's voting?
We're waiting for Mr. Tiff.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's it, yes.
I didn't hear you,
Oh,
I'm
yes,
sorry.
yes.
Mr. Seigler?
I'm going to do the same as Mr. Silver.
Can you say what it is, please?
No on A to H.
And Mr. Fink?
Yes.
All right, motion on the superintendent's agenda items.
Okay, what page is it?
Page 7. Also on the bottom of number 14 on page 9, fire and security drills, there's an attachment D&E. And ending on page 17. We need a motion.
Motion.
Motion. Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Schwartz?
Yes.
Mr. Silver?
Yes.
Mr. Tiff?
Yes.
Mr. Seigler?
Yes.
And Mr. Fink?
Yes.
Superintendent, need a motion for items, addendums 1, 2, and 4, 5, 6, and 7.
Motion.
Second.
I have a question about addendum number 5.
All right, so.
This was the one that called right off.
Yes. Mr. Schwartz?
Yes.
Wait, I have a question. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have a question about number 5. For the occupational therapy, $375,000. Question number 1, why wasn't it on the regular agenda? Number 2, were these numbers or fees or amount of hours or students verified through the business department beforehand, before it was made?
They were approved in July at $45 per session without a maximum. I did an RFP, and the maximum, they listed the maximum on the RFP. These are for non-public.
Yeah, I understand that. But when it was approved the first time, there was no maximum?
There was no maximum.
Why is that?
Because there was no RFP done. We just did an RFP.
She meant that as to become no max, two max.
Two max.
You know, but what do we come up with this number now? This is 75.
We did an RFP.
So that would say that the number of students that actually receive services?
They're receiving it for the whole year.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
That's a cap, that's a cap.
The cap.
Continue, roll call.
Mr. Short?
Yes.
Mr. Silver?
The addendums? Yes.
Mr. Tiff?
Yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Mr. Seidler? Yes. And Mr.
Yes.
All addendums passed.
Mr. President, before the meeting concludes, may I say something?
Please.
At the last meeting, Mr. Lurch, the auditor, in reviewing his audit, made a number of statements, all of which were accurate based on everything Mr. Lurch had been shown, concerning the relationship between the district and Catapult in terms of Catapult billing. Thereafter, Catapult's attorneys reached out for us, and a meeting was arranged, at which time Catapult presented some very convincing documentation to show that much, if not all, of what Mr. Lurch was looking for had actually been delivered to the district. For sure, however, that documentation never reached the business office, nor did it ever reach Mr. Lurch. But in fairness, that's not Catapult's fault. It was a personnel issue that I imagine the superintendent will deal with. Having said that, we asked Catapult to provide some representative copies of the documents, which they did. And when we looked at it together, and that would have been, I looked at it, the auditor looked at it, I think Mr. Seidler was present at the meeting, he looked at it, and we were all rather satisfied that the documentation was appropriate. What has happened now is that that documentation is available to Mr. Lurch. He is reviewing it. And if now, reviewing that documentation, he feels that there's any reason to alter any comment in his audit, he will do so. It certainly appears as if Catapult and the district are both in agreement that adequate accounting procedures are very important. It appears that Catapult is providing the materials that are needed, and that if there is a deficiency with respect to that, it's not necessarily at the Catapult end. We were concerned that the remainder of the Catapult clients not get a misimpression that Catapult was not delivering documents that they were supposed to deliver, because that would be an unfair characterization of them, given what we now know. So I suspect that what will occur is that these parties will move forward, meaning the board and Catapult and Mr. Lurch, all of whom I think are dedicated to getting this problem solved correctly, and that at a future meeting there'll be a much more detailed statement after Mr. Lurch has had a chance to review this documentation. There is no reason at the moment why the district anticipates other than moving forward with a useful and fully compliant relationship with Catapult.
Thank you. Motion?
Adjourn?
I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Well, this is a bombshell. Wow.
I don't know that it's all that much of a bombshell. I think that I've been saying for quite some time that there were boxes of materials that were not reviewed.
Well, isn't it incumbent on the business office to understand the documentation, its location, its relevance to the invoice, and to measure those ingredients all together so that they can prepare for audit?
Let me answer that question carefully, because we're in public session and we have to be careful that we discuss any personnel in public, as I know you know.
Right.
There was a breakdown someplace. And
With all due respect
I'm not
to this
exactly,
office.
let me finish. And we don't exactly know yet where that breakdown occurred.
Bill,
I
we're gonna
imagine
have
you'll
another-
hear more about it.
We're gonna have another meeting on the 20th. We will discuss it, and again, being transparent, we will discuss it in open public. Right now, it's really not for this meeting until we figure out and have more understanding to really discuss it publicly. So I appreciate your understanding of the matter, and look forward to seeing you on the 20th.
And it was brought up tonight because we all thought that if we were having received some additional information, it was unfair to leave any false impression with the public.
Perhaps we should start protecting ourselves from any legal action that they might want to bring against us for inferring.
Bill, we don't
I
want to discuss this.
think that front is quite calm.
Motion to dismiss.
Second? All right, all in favor, aye.
Have a good weekend, everybody.
Have a good weekend.